Welcome to the Be All You Can Be MSC, a podcast dedicated to empowering Army Medical Service Corps officers and professionals like you. I'm your host, Stephanie Moore. On today's episode of the Be All You Can Be MSC podcast, we are talking to our guest, Colonel James Goetschius. He is the 9 India consultant to the Army Surgeon General. What is a 9 India? 9 India is an additional skill identifier for health facilities planners. It's a unique skill and experience and qualification set in the discipline of architecture, engineering, business solutions, and facilities management. Sir, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. This is great. I really appreciate you putting this stuff together.
Thank you, sir. And so let's get started, sir. Tell us a little bit about your Army experience before we start delving into the 9 India ASI.
I commissioned in May of 1995 from the ROTC program at Norwich University, the birthplace of ROTC. And from there, I went to the basic course. And while I was in the basic course, a gentleman, Colonel Ed Phillips, who at the time was the commander of the Army's Health Facility Planning Agency, came into class and pulled out all of the officers who had studied architecture and engineering, took us into another room and said, "Hey, if you think you want to try and leverage your education while in the Army, give me a call after you've done your platoon time." And so I did. I started out as a medical platoon leader in an infantry battalion, like so many of us do. And then my second assignment was with the Health Facility Planning Agency at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research Replacement in Forest Glen, Maryland, just inside the Beltway here in DC. And that was where my time in the Army really took off. I found my home, awesome people, great opportunities. Got to, over the decades, have had the opportunity to be a project manager on a number of military construction projects. I got to deploy to Kosovo, Iraq, and Afghanistan as a health facility planner, and in those capacities got to oversee the construction of the modular hospital at Camp Bondsteel. Also got to oversee the design build of the theater hospital at Balad in Iraq, and then had some opportunities to go to school. I got to use the long-term health education and training program a couple of times, and then came back to the Health Facility Planning Agency in 2014, and I had the chance to lead the Project Execution Division, which at the time was overseeing Army's medical military construction program. At the time, we were executing about $6 billion in capital investments, and now I'm the commander of the Health Facility Planning Agency at the Defense Health Headquarters, in addition to being the 9 India consultant.
Well, thank you, sir. It sounds like you have a wealth of experience and knowledge, and definitely a very interesting Army journey. When I compare it to some of the opportunities I've had, definitely very unique. So let's delve a little deeper. What exactly is the 9 India ASI? I know I mentioned it has disciplines of architecture, engineering, and facilities management, but if you could be a little more specific.
So health facility planners are medical logisticians. All of us are kilos, and we specialize in the built environment. So what does that mean? We play roles in what we call facility lifecycle management, which includes planning, design, construction, initial outfitting, restoration and modernization of facilities. But fundamentally, we're responsible for making sure that facilities, infrastructure, that includes utilities, and equipment, support an organization's mission. And we do that across the full spectrum of operations and for the full range of medical activities that fall within the Army. We've worked very closely with engineers and with the medical community. I like to tell people that we serve a translation role. We translate medical for the engineers and engineering for the medics.
Nice.
But to that additional skill identifier, that 9 India ASI is awarded to officers so that we can track those individuals who are in that health facility planning career field. So it's separate from an area of concentration, but it helps us manage the career field itself.
So, sir, how would one of our audience members, if they're interested in becoming a 9 India, how would they do so? And does LSAT play a role in that process?
So it certainly can play a role in that process. It's not the only way. So there are two ways that you can get into a health facility planning job. One is through long-term health education and training. We have three programs in LTHET for health facility planners. One is an internship program, and then we have two school of choice opportunities. One is at the master's level and the other at the doctoral level. So the internship, it's competitive selection through the LTHET board, and those folks who are selected spend a year going through an experiential opportunity. It's frequently, although not always, but frequently conducted at the Defense Health Headquarters where the Health Facility Planning Agency is located. And we run those folks through that 12-month experience. They get exposed to the full range of facility acquisition activities. They get exposed to all of the various organizations that are involved in health facility planning. They get to meet a lot of people who are doing health facility planning for their work. And they build what I refer to as a mental model of what health facility planning is over that 12-month period. They start to understand. Initially, they get a sort of a rough framework in their mind about what it is. And over the course of that year, they get a better understanding of what it is. They get a better understanding of how healthcare delivery in our MTFs is conducted and how health facility planners support that. They get an understanding of how the Medical Command G9 and the Health Facility Planning Agency support integration on behalf of Army medicine. They get an opportunity to see the Health Facility Planning Agency's operational support role when we're projecting our capability around the world in context of health service support, global health engagements, the defense support of civil authorities. So those kinds of things are what you get exposed to as an intern. And then when you're done with that 12 months, then you get put into a utilization assignment and you actually get to put your knowledge and skills to work. And that's how we build many junior health facility planners. There are also some folks who come to us through the ATAP process, through a normal assignment process, and then we work on getting them experience as well. We have, for some junior officers who have been assigned to the Health Facility Planning Agency, not through LTHET, we have put them through an abbreviated internship experience so that they can get some of those same initial exposures to build their own mental model. And I think that's worked fairly well for us, or fairly well is probably being too modest there. I think it's worked really well for us, truthfully. And so assignments, internship. For the school of choice, we typically try to target officers who are already pursuing the health facility planning career field. To send somebody to school who has not previously done a health facility planning job or hasn't expressed in the past interest in health facility planning is risky for us. We get very few slots. And we also want to make sure that if you're pursuing a master's degree, there's a thesis requirement for a lot of those programs. And we want to make sure that you've got the background to be able to focus that effort, that research effort, on something that is pertinent to Army medicine, pertinent to health facility planning. And if you've never had that experience before, it's harder to do. The other thing I want to point out about becoming a 9I, the additional skill identifier is open to officers in the areas of concentration of 70 Bravo, 70 Kilo, and 67 Juliet. That's a change from now, a year ago. So it used to be only open to kilos. And we were interested in trying to expand the offerings now that the designation happens so late in people's captain years, that you could, if you were working towards the 9I as a junior captain or even maybe a senior lieutenant, you had the ability to actually earn it prior to designation as a Bravo or as a Juliet. And so I think that's beneficial for the community. The other thing I want to point out, though, is that all health facility planning positions are coded with a 9I, or actually 70 Kilo authorization. So as health facility planners, we are medical logisticians. That's what those jobs are. We're just offering opportunities for Bravos and Juliets to also work towards that ASI.
That's really fantastic to hear, sir. That opportunity is now there for the 70 Bravos because for the audience out there, if you are 70 Bravo, you won't designate your AOC or you don't get the opportunity until your 6th, 7th, or 8th year. So I think that really opens the aperture. And with regards to, yes, they are 70 kilo positions. However, for the 70 Bravos listening out there in your AIM marketplace, a lot of the AOCs do not have enough to go around. So they will open and advertise some of these AOC specific jobs in the Bravo marketplace. The amount varies depending on the movers in that specific AOC and the authorizations that are coming open. Sir, I have a couple of clarifying questions. So I know you mentioned you have school of choice program both for master's and a doctorate. Now, those school of choice, are they truly school of choice or are they specific to certain schools that you allow candidates to go to?
So they are school of choice. We do have what we call a preference list, but that does not preclude an officer from making a pitch for another school or a different program. Ultimately, the consultant gets to make the decision on whether a particular school or program will benefit the Army in addition to the officer. Okay. And we've had folks go to a whole range of places. I think recent graduates have come out of the University of Washington, Clemson, Johns Hopkins, Penn State, and there are some other schools as well. So lots of opportunities.
Well, I have to pretend like I didn't hear Clemson because my father is a Gamecocks fan and they're rivals. So I'm going to pretend like I didn't hear that school, sir. And then also for the prereqs, are there any prereqs with them applying to LSAT to the internship program? I know with the school of choice, you mentioned you prefer that they're already working or in the area of 9 India, but for the internship program, are there any specific prereqs for them on the LSAT program?
There are no special prereqs for us. We're interested in officers who are interested in us, right? We're looking for people who are passionate about the built environment and making sure that the built environment is serving military medicine. And so if you've got that interest and passion, then we're interested in you. If you feel like you didn't study architecture, you didn't study engineering, you don't have a degree in construction management, but you'd like to learn more, I'm happy to talk with anybody to help them understand what the opportunities are. And we can work with folks to ready them for Master School of Choice if that's what they're interested in. The other reality is even if you decided that you were interested in that, but you didn't want to go through LSAT, people can still get additional education through tuition assistance or on their own dime or through a myriad of other methods. It's a very small community of very capable officers, and we're always looking for folks who are excited and want to join us.
Sounds good, sir. And then another question, because you mentioned when you were talking about your experience that you'd gone through LSAT a couple of times. So I'm curious, was it the internship and school of choice for the 9 Indias, or what LSAT programs did you do?
So I went through LSAT for my master's program, actually started school right before 9/11. And by the time that I was pursuing my doctorate, the window for LSAT was still out to about 17 years. It's now down to about 14, I think. And so I was able to go back and get my PhD the second time. We've had 2 officers that I'm aware of that have double dipped in that way. Not many have the opportunity, but we've been fortunate.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's tough to balance with some of the PME, your primary military education, and some of the other milestones you have to meet. But fantastic hearing that not only yourself, but others have gotten that opportunity. So I'm curious, what assignments does a 9 India serve in? And then what's the impact of the DHA transition on some of those opportunities and assignments that 9 India is currently serving?
Awesome question. So there are opportunities all over the place. So we've got field unit, MTO unit opportunities. We've got garrison-based TDA units that have opportunities, and then there are jobs at DHA as well. So there are authorizations for 9 Indias in Compo 1 and Compo 3. So think active duty and think Army Reserve. There are 30 authorizations in the active force. A little less than half of those are at the U.S. Army Health Facility Planning Agency at the Defense Health Headquarters, which is the generating platform for the capability. We've got some opportunities at the Medical Readiness Commands. Each MRC has what we call a G9. so on the primary staff. There's a 9 India position at each of the theater medical commands or the medical command deployment support. There is a 9I position at each medical brigade and at each hospital center. And then I mentioned we've also got positions at DHA. And on the Compo 3 side, it's essentially the same structure. Most of the positions are on the TO&E side, so they're the theater medical commands, medical brigades, and hospital centers. There are also 4 positions. They're not currently coded with the 9 India. We're working on getting that fixed. But the duty title is Health Facility Planner, so it's a little hard to miss. But those are at the Civil Affairs Commands. And we've actually been working with some of the officers that are in those positions who are deployed downrange to help support them for their health facility planning needs. And so Compo 1, Compo 3, MTO, TDA, you can leverage your skill set as a health facility planner, across the force.
That's definitely a full array, and I'll be honest, I did not know about the Civil Affairs Command nor the breadth that it also went into Compo 3, so I've learned something new as well. So do you see those opportunities going away then with the DHA transition, or how's that going to impact the 9 Indias?
No, I don't see them going away. The Health Facility Planning Agency, the mission that we have is an integrator for Army medicine. So we're really working on behalf of the Army Surgeon General. And we also are responsible for what we call operational support. That's the ability to project the health facility planning capability around the world. So I should probably explain that a little bit because the capability is different than the career field. So the career field are the 9 I's, and the 9 I's are part of the capability, but the capability is a multidisciplinary set of skills that are necessary for that facility acquisition, that facility life cycle that we were talking about earlier. So think architecture, engineering, clinical planning, equipment planning, IMIT planning, and other specialties that all come together, all work together to make sure that the built environment, the infrastructure, the equipment, and all of those things that are necessary for somebody to be able to complete their mission index to provide their capability on behalf of the Army. We bring all those things together to deliver that built environment.
So in my mind, sir, what I'm thinking as you're describing this is so like in the situation where we know now we're going to maintain forces longer in Poland, you all could potentially be responsible for ensuring that the health facility is established there to provide support to our troops.
Yes, we are actively engaged in Eastern Europe right now. We're supporting USARAF, the U.S. Army Europe and Africa, and the Medical Readiness Command Europe with health facility planners. We're participating in area development plans. We're participating in the development of what we call program for designs. We're working with the Army Medical Logistics Command on warehouse facilities for medical materiel. And so we have similar efforts going on in the Indo-Pacific. There's a unit in Africa that we've been supporting from afar. So yes, we're engaged not just with healthcare delivery. Healthcare delivery is important, and we have health facility planners that are working the healthcare delivery mission with DHA. But we also got a lot of health facility planners that are in direct support of Army medicine for other efforts.
I appreciate you expanding a little bit on there, sir. Just otherwise it's hard, I think, to appreciate the wide expanse of the capability that you're discussing and that the 9 Indias bring to not only the AMED but to the Army. I appreciate that. So I'm curious then, how do the officers, because typically with ASIs we don't often see, or it's very difficult to stay just in the realm of your ASI because your area of concentration usually is looked at as it comes first. And there's also limits to how often you can be lucky enough, especially now with AIM, to get that ASI position. So how do they balance their 9 India ASI and then also like key developmental assignments, being in leadership roles, being a commander, being an executive officer, if that's the route they're looking to go? How do they ensure that they remain competitive but yet also maintain that skill set?
Yeah, so traditionally, we have been very competitive for promotion, command opportunities, school opportunities. And like all 70 series officers, we need a mix of MTO and TDA assignments. We all need to have company command. We all need to have challenging assignments. And I think that 9I jobs are among those challenging jobs that you can find in the MTO side and the TDA side. So a junior officer who's coming up today, is going to find themselves in some 9I jobs and then find themselves doing some other things and then coming back to health facility planning and then going off to do some other things. And that's, I think, what they should expect in their careers. I think the same is true if you're just doing traditional medical logistics. You're going to have a bunch of different experiences, a bunch of different kinds of jobs, and not all of those are going to be medical logistics jobs. You may be an XO in a medical logistics organization. You may be an XO outside of a medical logistics organization. You may find yourself on staff in a headquarters doing medlog stuff or doing something else. And so, at the end of the day, we need to be effective MSCs and make sure that we're crafting our careers in such a way that not only can we achieve our personal goals, and whatever they may be, but we're also providing a benefit to the Army and to Army medicine. And not everybody's experience is going to be the same. Some people will prioritize different kinds of jobs, based on what their end goal is in the Army, or they may prioritize geography or any number of things. But you can be an effective health facility planner and be a successful medical logistician and a successful MSC officer.
I appreciate that, sir. And so I'm curious, are there unique command positions that are only for 9 Indias?
So, yes, there are 2 strategic billet jobs for 9 Indias. One is the command at the Health Facility Planning Agency, the job I'm in right now. And then the other is the 06 authorization at the Defense Health Agency Facilities Enterprise, what we call DHAFE, which is also at the Defense Health Headquarters. The HFPA command position is coded in such a way that it can only be filled by a health facility planner, and that's the same with the way the 06 position at DHA is also coded. And that strategic billet board process is similar to the CSL process, but it's conducted within the medical command. And so it's open to 05s and 06s. So Stephanie, you might be able to help me as we go through this. So it's open to 05s and 06s. I believe you have to opt in, and it's usually a fairly small, we're talking dozens, but a fairly small set of jobs that are in that billet.
You did a great job, sir. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. And then each job also, they have articulated KSB, so knowledge, skills, and behaviors that they are looking for. So that way, if you are qualified for the position, but oftentimes the reality is that we don't always have enough people with the qualifications we seek, because at least in my experience, sir, and you tell me what your thoughts are, as a lot of times everyone wants to describe a unicorn, and there's only so many unicorns out there. So, but like you mentioned, that strategic billet with being a 9-9, I imagine, is not a negotiable and probably very critical of that role.
Yeah, in the almost 50-year history of the organization, HFPA was founded in 1975. The command position has always been filled by a health facility planner.
Which makes sense, sir, because if you put me up 70 kilo in there, I don't know that I would be very effective. So, well, I really appreciate you sharing this insight and laying it out there for this fantastic opportunity that exists. So let's shift gears and have a little fun, sir. So my next 2 questions are for fun. What is the best career advice you've ever received or given?
I think I've both received and given this advice. For most of us, the Army is not forever. And so we need to take care that we're making time for family and friends and hobbies and exercise and sleep and learning for ourselves, not necessarily for professional reasons. Because at the end of our time in uniform, we want to make sure that we still know who we are and we like who we are, and that we have people we love around us. So sometimes the culture that we work in can make finding that balance difficult. I've been doing this a little over 28 years, but I try very hard to follow that advice. Like I said, I received it at some point in my career, and I try to share it with others when given the opportunity.
Well, sir, I will tell you that you're definitely a leader that lives by that advice, because I'll share briefly with the audience. When I was coordinating with you to have this discussion, you had sent me an email apologizing for not getting me back to me sooner because you were on leave and you wanted to focus on your son's birthday. So kudos to you. It really speaks volume, the type of leader you are. And I appreciate you sharing that advice.
You're very kind.
And so, next, our last question, sir. Share a fun fact about you. And if you don't know one, share your favorite ice cream.
So, a fun fact, I was a sprinter in high school, ran everything from the 100 meters up to the 400 meters, to include 4x100 and 4x400 relays. So when I got to college and I was in Army ROTC, the Army doesn't seem to give two hoots about sprinting. What they really care about is longer runs. And so I started running longer distances while in college. And then when I got my second job in the Army, I was working for HFPA, and Lieutenant Colonel Rick Bond at the time, former commander of HFPA, he had signed up for the Boston Marathon in April of 1997, and he kept talking about his training and all the stuff he was doing, and I thought, maybe I could run a marathon. And so he encouraged me to sign up for the Marine Corps Marathon in October of 1997, and that was my very first road marathon. And then I started running one marathon a year, and then I went to two marathons a year, and then it grew up a little bit. And so in 2005, I ran my first trail ultra marathon, so any distance over 26.2 miles. And I've continued building on that. And so I've done a lot of these since 1997. I'm not fast, but I am persistent, and I absolutely love running on single track through the woods.
Wow, I would have never known this, sir. And I am very impressed because the furthest I've ever run is 12 miles, and that was to get commissioned at OCS. So kudos to you. I have seen I think it was in Pennsylvania, the 55-mile ultra marathon, and it is no joke. So impressive. And I appreciate you sharing that fact because I would have never known that, sir.
Well, I am a strong believer, a true believer, that anybody that wants to run a marathon doesn't mean you're going to win, but if you want to run and finish a marathon, you absolutely can. So I would encourage anybody that's ever had that thought in the back of their mind, but talk themselves out of it for whatever reason, there's no reason not to pursue it.
Well, thank you for that advice, sir. And then before we wrap up, sir, I'm just going to mention to the audience, if you are interested in becoming a 9I in 9 India, or you would like to speak to some of our talented 9 Indias out there, I am going to provide your deputies information so that the audience can reach out to them. Any last words, sir?
Stephanie, I really appreciate the opportunity. This has been great. Listen to all of the podcasts so far, and I look forward to many more in the future.
Thank you, sir, and I hope you have a very good evening.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us. Don't miss the next episode of the Be All You Can Be MSc podcast. Subscribe now and join our vibrant community of ambitious professionals who are taking their careers to the next level. The opinions shared on this podcast are the personal opinions of the guests and the hosts. They do not reflect the official position of the Medical Service Corps, the Department of Defense, or the U.S. government.